There are three levels of abundance that we're called to wake up to realize, to embody, and express in our life. These three levels are called primary, secondary, and tertiary levels of abundance. And it's a hierarchy, a sacred hierarchy that's based on, think of it as based on a degree of primacy or of purity, but not moral purity, rather the purity of the essential nature without any permutations. There's an infinite number of flavors of ice cream, but all ice cream in its essence comes from milk, sugar, and ice in some combination. And abundance in its essence exists at the primary level of reality. And so let's shift for a moment and think about love. If we have this sense of, I want to have love in my life, a loving relationship, it's because at one level, a subtle memory, we've tuned into the primary feeling, the pure presence of love. And that crystallizes into the thought, I want a loving relationship. When we speak that, when we crystallize that thought even more deeply into our embodied reality through language, I want to have a loving relationship. I want to form a loving relationship. That then impels us to take actions in the world to bring that reality into our daily life. And it's the same with abundance. Abundance, if it's going to manifest in the tertiary domain, the third level of our everyday experience, must first be preceded by actions, by words, by thoughts, and by subtle, intuitive communion with the essence of abundance itself. Now, in the process of the descending and the crystallizing of this quality of abundance, there are, we say three levels, but there are uncountable subtle gradations between the first super subtle intimation of abundance and the fully incarnated and expressed manifestation. So this map of primary, secondary, and tertiary is a map that's helped us to guide our spiritual practice, guide our realization, our embodiment, our awakening to this quality in a way that orients us towards living from the Great Fullness, the Great, Great Fullness, that is from which our lives emerge. So primary abundance, when we are attuned to the level of primary abundance, we are in a direct communion with the fullness of this moment. And the experience could be crystallized in the thought, the revelation, the understanding. This moment, as it is complete. Abraham Maslow termed this a peak experience. In the Zen tradition, it's the Satori moment. It's the recognition of the sacred nature of life here and now, in life actually as it is at this moment. It's what we touch and taste and know when the defended heart sheds its self-protection, and it simply is loving what is. It's the mind that is released from even subtle conceptualizations to stand in stillness and awe before what is. It's the innate, inherent abundance without any because clause, without any kind of this because of that. It's just this. This is that. And at this primary level, there's the clear understanding, isn't the right word, the clear revelation that abundance is ever present. And when we're attuned in, and when we're tuning into that, we feel, we see, we apprehend that fullness, that great fullness shining through and animating the secondary and tertiary levels of our experience. You know what it's like. Sometimes you're going on a walk and you walk by a tree and you don't even notice it. It's like a tree. It's sort of just blended into the background. Other times you walk by a tree and it becomes a powerful teacher. It becomes a powerful transmitter, a reminder to you of the great fullness of life itself. Once upon a Zen time, and the Zen tradition is full of these stories where the radiance of the primary abundance is shining through tertiary experience. And once upon a Zen time, Banzan is the name of the protagonist, was walking through a market and he overheard a conversation. So the monk was on his rounds, walking through mindful, breath, step, presence, walking through the marketplace, and the conversation was happening between a butcher and a customer. "Give me the best piece of meat you have," said the customer. And the butcher replied, "Everything in my shop is the best. You cannot find here any piece of meat that is not the best." And these words, clearly Banzan's mind was open, his heart was undefended, and these words went right in and broke open his heart mind to the primary abundance of life itself. This is an example of the primary abundance, which is never concealed. It's not hidden. It's rising through and streaming through and emanating through every moment of our experience. That doesn't mean that we don't have discernment, that if we're at the butcher, we know we want chicken or pork or beef or whatever it is, and if you're a vegan, you know you want cashews, not almonds, or whatever it might be. Discernment is present, and the light, the radiance is shining through and shining through your heart, shining through the trees, the leaves, the breath, the breeze. It's this uncaused abundance beyond words, and it is beyond time because it is ever present. Jesus says in the Gospel of Thomas, the kingdom, that's a word for this great fullness that is abundance itself. The kingdom is spread out upon the earth, but people don't see it. It's here right now. It's us. It's this conversation. It's what's around you. It's what's within you. It is all soaked through and through with that great fullness, that abundance, but we don't see it. And if we look too hard for it, we don't even see it we see it less, because it's not a matter of effort, and it's not a matter of grasping, and it's not a matter of dialing in the lens. It's not an object of our grasping mind. It's the very nature of life itself that is spread out all over the universe at every level. It emanates and reverberates. It permutates. It permeates this body-mind, your body-mind. It gives rise to qualities, to flavors, to insights, to experiences. And the first layer of those experiences is at that secondary level. Now we're dropping down. The secondary level of experience. You can think of it as the archetypal or secondary level. This is where we tune into these archetypal states of awareness that bring us the flavors of the great fullness. Flavors like peace, like love, like beauty, belonging, and an infinite number of sacred emanations that come from the primary revelation into our secondary subtle senses. Our archetypal heart-mind is open, and these qualities are bathing the body-mind. They come very precisely based on the needs of our soul. The great fullness includes every healing medicine, every healing blessing, every sacred balm, B-A-L-M, and it comes down into the secondary level and touches those memory tracks of lack that are within us. That's any sense of incompleteness is filled from the great fullness. Now, in the religious texts, they would say the blind shall see, the deaf shall hear, the lame shall walk. It's a symbolism of wherever there's a lack, a contraction, there's an opening and a receiving of the great fullness at this secondary level. And the practice here, and it is a practice, is to savor completely and enjoy completely the qualities of the great fullness that are alive in this moment of your experience. To savor them completely without clinging to them. Because as soon as anything moves from the primary down secondary tertiary, it will have the quality of impermanence, of coming and going, of arising and passing away. And so the savoring, it's like taking a delicious spoonful of lemon sorbet, a palate cleanser in the restaurant. Savor it completely. It's gone. There's a poignancy. Yes, a poignancy and a preciousness into this practice of savoring, which is just simply recognize and bathe in the sacred activity of the great fullness as it endlessly renews itself and reveals itself through your body-mind. We savor the flavors. And as we savor these flavors, as we open and we soften and we receive the graces of the great fullness at that subtle level, it begins to encode and build in our nervous system, in our body-mind. It begins to build a pathway of neural networks, of subtle energy channels, if you will, nadis and channels. That is the bridge through which the great unconditioned fullness passes down through the subtle senses, through the archetypal levels of consciousness, and passes into our embodied experience. And so building these bridges of abundance, building these bridges of appreciation, this is the practice of abiding and savoring. I remember so often Kriyananda, our teacher, would sometimes in the middle of a talk, he would go, "Pardon me, God is calling." And he would turn in for some time and then return to the talk. And a disciple got brave or got curious or got wise and said one time, "Kriyananda, what's that like when you do that?" And he said, "It's like the descent of swarm oil." There's a soothing, in other words, a quality down the spine of the soothing blessing of great abundance. And as we open to it and we take time to receive it, we become more attuned to its presence and we savor it completely. And to the degree that we do, we're healing the memory tracks of lack deep, deep within the soul, deeply within. That healing moves all the way down into our everyday life experience. And as it moves into the tertiary domain of our everyday life, we become aware of the sacred nature of what's called ordinary daily life. It's amazing. There's a glass of water and I get to drink it. That's a miracle. That's the great abundance, the great fullness in action. All of the infinite number of beings whose activities participated in me being able to have a glass of water right now. It's stunning. And this is the experience of having that continuity of consciousness from the great fullness through the archetypal blessings and healings down into the ordinary everyday miracles of the sacred moment that we live. Yes, at the tertiary level in our everyday life, of course, there can be a tendency to equate certain manifestations as the evidence of abundance. That's why I talk about a glass of water, because we inherit equations from our culture. You know, in history, back in the Netherlands, there was a time where ownership of tulip bulbs was the equation that said more tulip bulbs equals more abundance. And every culture has its symbolic equivalencies. Abundance means having more of this. If we fixate on the this, we easily break the thread that allows the great fullness to be present in every moment of experience. When we become intoxicated by the cultural definitions, we fixate on those, and then we are trying to control our experience of abundance at the tertiary level. And this leads to an ongoing sense of struggle, of lack, and of incompleteness, of living in an inherently unsatisfying, unfulfilling life of moments of lack. And that's not the mystical pathway. The mystical pathway is to build that bridge so that the inherent blessing of the great fullness is communed with primary level, secondary level, tertiary level walking around. So it's helpful to reflect on your experiences in your life, in your everyday life, when you've had those moments of innate abundance, of the grace of the great fullness breaking through the ordinary to reveal that it is extraordinary. It's helpful to reflect on the subtle symbols, or not so subtle symbols, that your culture, your family has trained the mind, not you, but the mind, to equate with abundance. And to look at the ways that we've become hypnotized or intoxicated by those symbol systems, not to reject the value of money or of a car or whatever it might be from your symbol, tulip bulbs, but rather to open up more profoundly so that the flow of great fullness is present at every level, and that we live from that rather than grasp for it.